Hi everyone and welcome to my new video where we are going to be setting up my bullet journal for September. I decided to go for this simple autumn theme because I haven't done a proper fall theme in a couple of years I think, and I wanted to have some kind of nature theme this month. This is the second time I'm setting up my new bullet journal, and I've really enjoyed using this journal so far. I will leave a link to my new bullet journal setup in the description so you can check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Anyway, I wanted to draw a mushroom and a cute little hedgehog for this cover page. And hedgehogs are actually one of my favorite forest animals, so that's why I wanted to include them in this theme. I kept the line art quite simple, and I think this cover page was pretty fast to set up as well. So if you are looking for some simple theme ideas for fall, definitely give it a try. I feel like it can be quite difficult to simplify animals when you are drawing them, or at least that's challenging for me. So I practiced drawing these hedgehogs a couple times before I started drawing this cover. The key is to draw the face of the hedgehog with this more solid line, and for the spiky parts I just drew little short lines next to each other, and I wanted the outlines to stand out a bit, so I used a pigma micron in size 0.5 for the main outlines, like almost always. And I also decided to add a little bit of details with a thinner 0.1 size later. Because the forests are currently full of berries here in Finland, I wanted to draw some berries as well, and I was thinking of drawing blueberries at first, but they turned out looking more like lingonberries, which is fine. I think this theme reminds me a little bit about my 2021 September theme, which is one of my all-time favorites, and that was also my first long Plan With Me video on this channel, so you can go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Time has gone by really fast, and I can't believe that I've been making YouTube videos for 2 years now. I remember that I was very nervous when I posted my first video, and I also really struggled with the voiceovers back then because I wasn't really used to talking in English. So it's fun to see how much things have changed over these 2 years, and I also feel a lot more comfortable speaking in English. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my videos and leaving so kind comments. I really appreciate it, and your support means a lot to me. For the coloring, I wanted to use my colored pencils because I like how I can blend different shades with each other and get a bit softer look. I'm really happy that I decided to buy these colored pencils because it kind of feels like I'm a kid again and just coloring away, except this time I have also drawn the doodles myself instead of using a coloring book. For the cap of the mushroom I used quite a lot of different colors, like multiple shades of brown and also a little bit of yellow, so the cap wouldn't look flat. Because I didn't have the perfect shade for the leg of the mushroom, or stem I guess, I used my Tombow dual brush pen and one Crayola Colors of the World marker for coloring, and I tried to leave some parts white so it would have more dimension. I also wanted the hedgehog to be a little bit different shade of brown, so it would stand out from the mushroom. So I picked up more cool toned brown shades for that, which were also a bit darker. The one thing that I'm looking forward to in September is walking in a forest and seeing all the yellow leaves. The forests here where I live have quite a lot of snakes during summer, so I haven't walked in a forest in a really long time, but as the weather gets cooler, the snakes also go to hibernation, I think, so it's a bit safer to walk in the forest again. Last year I went to hiking to a national park nearby, and it was amazing, so I definitely want to go there again this year, and I would also love to go to mushroom picking, but I think I have to study the different kinds of mushrooms first, because I know only 1 or 2 edible mushrooms. I would love to hear if you have ever gone to mushroom picking, and let me also know if you have any favorite mushrooms. September is also the lingonberry season, I think, but I don't really like the taste of them because they are very sour. So I don't think I'm going to pick any. Blueberries taste a lot better and I really like them, but I think the season is almost over for them, so I probably won't pick them either. Anyway, the coloring part was the most time consuming part in this cover page because I layered the colors quite a bit to get the look I wanted. And I also colored the berries red, even though I was scared that it would make this cover a bit too Christmassy. But I think they turned out quite well and now they look like lingonberries, which is perfect for September. As a last step, I added a little bit of highlights with my white jelly roll, and then I also colored the moon with gold jelly roll, as I love how shiny it is, and of course I added some golden sparkles as well, because they made the cover page look more whimsical. Finally, I also added a tiny little white dot in the eye and nose of the hedgehog to make them pop a little bit more. Now the cover page is almost ready, but I wanted to cut a little bit of the paper off to create this kind of Dutch door, as the cover would have been too simple for my liking otherwise. I actually ended up making a little mistake when I was cutting these Dutch doors, because I had planned a totally different weekly layout for my first weekly spread and forgot to trace the part where I would cut the paper, so I had to change the layout later, which you will see. Luckily this wasn't that big of a mistake and it was also really easy to correct, so things ended up looking just fine in the end. Behind the Dutch door I added this light yellow washi tape and I used a brown grit washi tape for the tabs, which is from the washi tape shop, and you can find an affiliate code which gives you 10% off in the description, along with all the other supplies that I used in this video. On the left side I created a fall bucket list, just because I'm really excited about the changing season, even though I'm definitely going to miss summer as well. I kept this page quite simple and added this yellow washi tape, which kind of reminds me of embroidery, and I bought this when I visited Jyväskylä a couple months ago, so I don't know where you can find this exact one. I would love to hear what kind of things you would add to your fall bucket list, so definitely let me know in the comments. Besides the mushroom picking, I also want to do some cozy things at home, like knitting and crocheting, which I'm still obsessed with. My sister is also coming to Finland, so we will probably watch some horror movies together like we always do. So let me know if you have any movie recommendations, and that doesn't have to be scary movies. Anyway, now the cover spread is finally finished, and if I'm being completely honest, it's not my favorite, because I feel like it still misses something, but that's fine, and I ended up liking the other spreads a lot more. I really like having black outlines on my calendar last month, so I did that for my calendar again this month, and I didn't want to use a ruler, so I ended up going with this broken kind of line, so the wonky lines wouldn't bother me. For the other lines I used my Tombow dual brush pen in the shade 990, so the spread would have a little bit more airy and fresh look. I kept the decorations quite simple and doodled these berry brands, and I also added a little moon to add that more magical look, I guess. I don't have many plans for September yet, other than spending some time with my sister and maybe going on that hike in the national park. I've been traveling quite a lot in the last month or so, as I had 2 little road trips and 1 train trip last week. And I've been thinking whether I should make another travel journal video from one of the trips or not. So let me know if you'd like to see that, and maybe leave a train emoji in the comments if you would be interested. Starting a travel journal has been one of the best things I've done, as it's really nice to read about my travels afterwards, And I also really enjoy the fact that I don't do any kinds of themes in that journal, so it gives more of a creative freedom, I guess. Travel journaling also got me into collaging, which I really enjoy these days. Anyway, I wanted to avoid the Christmassy vibes that the red berries with green leaves give, so I decided to color the berries blue this time, and I think it worked out really well with the other colors. I had to change my happy tracker layout a little bit because I cut the Dutch door and I didn't have enough space on the right side to use my usual layout. I decided to use this grid paper again for the happy trackers, and I made 2 rows of 5 mini calendars, so I would have 10 habits in total that I could track. As I filmed this video quite late, I also wrote all the habits I'm tracking in September, which are pretty much the same as last month. I've been still crocheting and knitting a lot and finished a couple different projects which I forgot to take photos of, so I can't show them to you in this video, but I will probably make a YouTube short later, so stay tuned for that. I've been thinking of knitting a sweater, which honestly feels quite intimidating because it's a big project and I don't always have enough patience for those. But now that I've successfully knitted 2 tops, I think I could do it, so maybe that will be one of my next projects. If you have any pattern recommendations of easy sweaters, let me know in the comments. For the decorations, I drew some mushrooms and blueberries, and I really like how these doodles look with this layout. This probably ended up being my favorite spread from this setup actually, and I think that's because I used a new layout, which I probably should do more often. I think this is the first time that I don't have a title on my Happy Tracker page, but trackers don't really need those as long as you have the habits written down, and I might use this style more often from now on. We will see if I end up missing the 2 extra habits that I normally track. Sometimes less is more, I guess. I would love to hear how many habits you like to track, or if you use a habit tracker at all. I know my habit tracker might look a bit intimidating because it has so many habits, but I definitely don't do all of them every day, and some of my trackers might end up being quite empty, which is fine. I think the key with habit tracking is to find few good habits that you can stick to on a daily basis, and those habits for me, for example, are waking up before 9:30 and making my bed in the morning. I've always been a night owl, and because I currently have the chance to sleep until 9:30, I will definitely do it. I have got some comments where people wonder why I track my waking up time because I wake up so late, and I think tracking your sleeping and waking up times can be a good thing no matter when you wake up. I guess it's not as socially acceptable when you wake up later, but people can have many different kinds of situations why they stay up late, like working on a night shift, for example. In my case, I just have never been a morning person, and I'm often more creative during the evenings, so I also like to stay up late. Anyway, enough about that. Let's move on to my weekly spreads. I first used my grid spacing guide to come up with a different layout that would work with this Dutch door situation, and I decided to divide the page in 3 sections so I would have this kind of horizontal weekly spread. I also counted how many dots I had just in case, so the boxes would be about the same size. By the way, if you'd like to know more about my grid spacing ruler, I posted a video about that a month ago, so go check that out. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but I added the yellow washi tape behind the horizontal Dutch doors and also on top of the first Dutch door, so they would show up evenly on the cover page, if that makes any sense. I've shown how I make Dutch doors in my previous video, so I decided to cut them beforehand to save some time. I will be setting up all my weekly spreads in this video because I've really enjoyed having all of them ready to use at the beginning of the month. For the decorations, I decided to draw another hedgehog and a little cup with some berries to change things up a little bit. And I also added this mini envelope with the monthly calendar inside because I really like how it looks. I wrote the mini calendar with my Muji gel pen, which I accidentally smeared with my finger a little bit. And this is also the reason why I don't really use gel pens when I'm making my monthly setup. Fineliners dry a lot quicker and they are also waterproof, so that's why I like to use them instead, but I do use gel pens for filling in my bullet journal because that makes my fineliners last a bit longer. I don't really like horizontal layouts in my bullet journal because I usually write some daily tasks in my journal, and I feel like task lists just work a lot better in vertical layouts. I guess horizontal layout might be better when you use your bullet journal more for journaling purposes, so it will be interesting to see how it will end up working for me. I guess I could write the tasks in 2 columns as well in these boxes if I have a busier day. I feel like this theme, like almost all of my themes this year, have been a bit different if you compare them to my style last year, and I like how I've been experimenting more with colors and textures. When it comes to illustrations, I've kind of got back to this style of my first bullet journals, where I mainly used fine liners and colored pencils, and it has made my inner child really happy. And I also feel like I've finally learned how to use stickers instead of just collecting them. So I will be using them later in this setup as well. I haven't drawn any digital art in months, so I've been thinking of doing that again, and I've been also thinking of drawing my cover page digitally for my bullet journal setup, so I could just print it out and stick to my journal, as that could be a fun change. Making digital art is totally different kind of process, and I feel like you can play more with colors and textures and do different kinds of things compared to traditional art. So let me know if you'd like to see that in the future. Anyway, this spread is almost finished and we will soon move on to my next weekly spread. I wanted to use this box layout again because it has more space for tasks, but it also works really well if I'm just journaling about my day. I used my Tombow dual brush pen for making this gingham pattern that I've been obsessed with, and I think it gave a nice and cozy vibe for this spread. I used the pattern for every other box, and for the rest I just drew some basic outlines with a darker brown color. I love how quick this weekly spread was to set up because I didn't have to add any decorations and could just focus on the layout itself. Dot store weeklies are my favorite because of this reason, and I highly recommend you to try them out as well. Cutting the page can definitely feel a bit intimidating at first, but you will get used to it and you can always use the leftover paper for something else like correcting mistakes. For the chart layout I went for this one, which has little boxes for events on the top, and below it I will have a section for a running task list, which helps to see how long it will take to do one task, and it's also really helpful if you have a week where there are a lot of repeating tasks. The way this works is that I will write the task down and also mark the days when I did that task on the left side. On the right side I have some space for journaling about my days and writing some notes or things to remember, and I used this grid paper that I made and printed a while ago to add some texture, and I also decided to add some collaging on the top and bottom to fill up the empty spaces. I bought this pink washi tape from Vihkokauppa when I was visiting my friend at Tampere, and I think this washi tape is from Little Lefty Lou, if I remember right. I will see if I can find a link to their shop and I will add that in the description. For the last weekly spread, I decided to go for this box layout again, but this time I used this grid paper for every other box because I could glue that on top of the washi tape that I had on the right side. If you can't tell, I love using grid paper because it adds a nice texture and makes the spread a bit more interesting to look at. For the other boxes, I decided to use my gold jelly roll to add a little bit more sparkle, and you could also use weekday stickers for the days of the week, but I didn't have any, so I ended up writing them with my regular handwriting. Oh, and I also glued a white paper on the right side to cover some of the washi tape, as otherwise I would have had to make the boxes smaller, which I didn't want to do. Now we are making my last spread in this setup, and I decided to bring back my weekly thoughts page where I will just basically write like a little summary of each week, and this will help me to write my monthly review at the end of the month, which will be on the right side. I again went for this broken line for the boxes, and I will also write the week numbers on the left sides of them, but I was too lazy to check which numbers I should write when I was filming, so I will write them later. I haven't used this page for a while, so we will see how it will work for me. For the decorations, I just doodled some blueberry branches on the both sides of the title. If you are struggling with what to write in a monthly review or this kind of weekly recap, I will just write out what I did during the week and what was my mood overall. You can also think if you have any small successes or something that was challenging and write about that. I usually try to focus on the positive things and small successes I had when I'm filling, especially my monthly review, because those are sometimes a bit more difficult to notice as my mind tends to focus on things I could do better. So this is a little way to train my mind to be more positive. Besides the successes and challenges, I also have sections for writing out my monthly favorites and things to improve. Crocheting and knitting have still been one of my favorite things to do, so I will definitely write them in my August monthly review. I also tried playing Baldur's Gate with my boyfriend, but I'm not sure yet what I think about that, because I felt like I had to make too many decisions, and as I'm very indecisive, I didn't really like that, but maybe that will get easier the more you play. The only games I've enjoyed playing are The Sims and Stardew Valley, and speaking about Stardew Valley, I will probably play more of that in September. Anyway, for the finishing touches, I made a little collage on the bottom right corner and also decided to add some lines below the favorites and things to improve sections. Here's the final flip through, and I would love to hear what you think of this theme. I'm very happy with how this theme turned out, even though I feel like it's not my best work, but done is better than perfect, I guess. This was really fun to set up, and I'm also glad that I got to use these new washi tapes that I've bought recently. Remember to leave a like and also a hedgehog emoji in the comments if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye bye!